Hello and welcome to a safeagsystems webinar. My name's Abigail Hickman, Client Experience Manager. Today's webinar is going to look at documents and files in the safeagsystems software program. This will be focused mainly around the desktop and the process of setting them up. So to get started, let's share the desktop view. So documents and files are found in the left-hand menu near the bottom. Under this menu are a number of sections where you can access different types of documents and forms. These include checklists, inductions, inspections, policies, procedures, the Ag Auditor, and uploaded documents. To give you a brief understanding of what these different sections mean, checklists are essentially forms which you can build to capture information from the person completing the checklist. These are useful for things like pre-start checks. Inductions, which will be covered in a separate webinar, are a process of introducing workers to the farm expectations. Inspections are provided to prompt you to inspect areas of your business to assist with the identification of hazards and risks which need to be controlled. We are currently in the process of transitioning inspections under checklists, so we will look at these under checklists today. Policies are your business rules, things like your expectations around smoking. Procedures are processes or operation rules. So procedures can cover the way you expect a task to be completed safely or how someone should operate a machine safely. The Ag Auditor is add-on software which automates the audit process and enables businesses to set up their audits and quickly and easily run internal and external audits. The Ag Auditor can be used for a broad range of audits such as workplace health and safety, fresh care, HARPS, HACCP, etc. And finally, uploaded documents. This is essentially a filing cabinet for retaining documents created outside of safeagsystems that you wish to upload and retain in your safety system. So let's get started with policies and procedures. These document areas, while different, work in a similar way when it comes to creating and sharing them. So when it comes to creating, we'll work with them as one. Under both policies and procedures, there is a safeagsystems template library, which can make your life a lot easier if you're not entirely sure what sort of documents you may need to put into place for your business. When you go into policies and procedures, across the top, you have a number of tabs. You have the published tab. These are the documents that you have created and published and are now available for your employees to view and to accept. The draft tab is for documents that you are working on and currently have not yet published. Archived is where you have documents which you have previously published and have now archived them and may have either a new version or may no longer need them. The template library is where we will have a look at in a moment, which is the documents that we have provided in template form for you to edit. Company templates relates to businesses which have a management portal, so we won't cover that in this particular webinar. And finally, procedure logs, or under policies, it will be policy logs. These are the logs of employees which have accepted these documents. So very briefly, we'll have a look at the template library. So under the template library, you have a whole series of documents which are templates provided by safeagsystems for you to edit for your business. You'll notice over here that there is a list of documents marked as core, and then down here there is another list of documents marked as relevant, and then there's documents which are not marked at all. So the basis of these documents being set as core or relevant relates to your commodity, which you have set under business details. Now, this has been covered in the introduction webinar, but just to give you a brief understanding, under business and business details, at the bottom of this field, you have content preferences. Where these content preferences have been filled out, it will then filter those document templates based on what we would suggest may be needed for businesses that have those particular commodities. So moving back into procedures, we'll go back into the template library. Over here, we have a tick. So a tick means that this particular document has been copied. So this version of the document has been copied and may either be located in draft or it may be a published document. Documents which do not have a tick have not yet been used in your business. You can open these documents and have a read through to decide if they are relevant to your business. If you decide that they are and you wish to use them and edit them, you simply come down here and click Use Template. It then gives you the option to edit the title. If you wish, you can give it a company ID. That is an internal identification of documents that you may use. And if you wish to change it, you can click Customize. Keep in mind with all these templates, they are written from a best practice perspective, but it is very important that businesses edit them and review them in relation to their own business practices and make sure that they relate and reflect what you do in your business. For example, our smoking policy will say no smoking. If you have areas on your property which enable smoking, then you should edit the policy to reflect that. Once you've opened the template, you can read through it, and in the top right-hand corner, you've got a small pencil icon, which enables you to edit the document. If you click on that, it will open it in an editable window, and you can now change the text. Across the top, you've got a number of formatting options and also the option to insert content. So the content that you can insert includes PPE. So these are icons which can be inserted. So if I wish to insert the requirement to wear gloves, I would simply click gloves and it would insert the PPE image. The business name can be automatically populated from the insert content field and then clicking the business name. In edit format, it will show up as a field, but once saved, it will show up as the business name which you have saved under business and business details as the primary entity. You can also insert images. So pictures can be inserted into here, and finally you can insert links. So links are things like websites, or it could be YouTube videos, which you feel would be helpful to share with the person reading this document. Keep in mind that if you have poor connectivity on your property, images and links do require internet. So they may not be viewable if someone is viewing this document offline. Finally, there is not a lot of formatting options. However, there is a reason for that. These documents are designed so they can be read either on a desktop, a tablet or iPad, or a mobile device such as a mobile phone. Obviously, for those documents to be able to be read on a phone, they need to be very clear and viewable. Hence the reason why the formatting options may sometimes feel a little restricted. Once you're happy with your editing, you click Save, and you can now preview the document to see how it will look for someone reading it. Up here, we've got a view mode and an update mode. In an update mode, if this was a document that you were actually going to fill out, you could actually go and complete it in the view mode. In the preview mode. Across the top, you have the three icons. It will automatically set to the desktop view, which is what we're looking at here, or you can select the tablet or iPad view, and finally the mobile phone view. So this is showing you how it will look if someone reads this document on a mobile phone. Once you're happy with your document, you simply click Publish. Now, if I do not click Publish, I exit Preview and close. The document is now located under the Draft tab. I can now go and publish it either from the three-dot menu over here, or I can open it up and click publish. You will need to put in the name of the person who's publishing the document, and it will need to be signed by the person approving it. The easiest way to do that is to upload an image. So if you save your signature, you can then easily access it and save it to each of your documents. It will automatically populate the date, and it will set the review date to 3 years' time. If you have a internal document ID system, put in the ID here. You can add a comment. This is particularly important if you're reviewing a document, that you can put in a comment as to what was reviewed in the next version. Finally, at the bottom of this publish screen, you have the option of determining who can view this document. If this document is of a sensitive nature, you can remove contractors, supervisors, and workers and only enable it to be viewed by business administrators. If it's a document that you want everyone to view, then obviously you leave all four. Or there might be documents that you don't wish contractors to view, in which case you would delete the contractor field. So we now click publish. Now the document has been published, it is now moved to the Publish tab and is available here for viewing. Once the document has been published, you can now assign it to workers to read and accept. So the process to assign documents can be done in 2 ways. One, come up here and click Assign Procedure. If you click into the title field, it will give you a list of documents which have been published, which can be shared. You select the document you wish to assign to workers to accept. And then you can either accept a group of workers. So I could accept, say, anyone set with worker access will be assigned this document. That will automatically put in all the assignees' names who have worker access in your system. Alternatively, if you wish to just assign it to one individual in your company, you can come down here and select that individual and click Next. That individual will now get an alert to say that a document has been assigned to them to be accepted or completed. You can also assign multiple procedures or policies if you need. Simply click all the documents you wish to assign, come up here to the bulk action section, go Assign Procedures and Apply, and it will come up with a similar field screen to the one we saw previously, where you can either assign it to a group, hit Next, and that group of individuals has now received all 3 of those documents to be read and accepted. So as I repeated, the actual acceptance of documents will be covered in the Using the App for Workers webinar. So if you would like to look into that, please register for that particular webinar. So the process, I've covered that process in procedures. The process in policies is identical with the same templates across the top, the same tabs across the top, and the same process to assign them to individuals. The only difference in here is that the documents are different, obviously, because they're policies. So there is a different group of policies in templates as opposed to procedures. So we'll go now into policies, and I'll demonstrate the process for building a new one. So this is the same process that you would undertake in procedures, but obviously a different type of document. So the process in here is to put in a title and click Next. Now, when you're creating a document from scratch, you have the option of either typing it using the editor or importing it if you've got a PDF outside of the system that you want to import as a procedure or policy. To do that, you either drag in the editor or drag in the PDF. If I drag in a PDF, It will then prompt me to click on here and upload a PDF and click Save. So that document is now saved into this policy for sharing with your workers. Now, do keep in mind that when you bring in a document as a PDF, it will only be viewable to workers if they have connectivity. If they're offline, they will not be able to view a PDF. And the process for publishing that document is the same. Okay, so now let's move on to checklists. So checklists are versatile and powerful documents that step users through a series of questions to gather responses. Common checklists include things like pre-operational checks, toolbox meeting minutes, inspections, or even capturing license or contractor insurance details. Once again, there are a whole series of templates located under the template library in the template library tab across the top. You will find in here that there are a whole series of documents labelled inspection at the end. These documents are the inspections I mentioned earlier, which prompt you to inspect an area of your business and identify hazards and risks. To use a template, you can view the template first of all by opening it up and having a look, much the same as under procedures and policies. You can read through it, and if you feel that it applies to your business, click Use Template. Alternatively, you can come over to the three-dot menu, click there and say Use Template. To create a checklist from scratch, you come up here and click Build New. Give it a title. You can also give it a company ID number if you have an internal document numbering system, and click Next. This document is now opened in an editable field where you can start building it. So checklists are made up of two main components. There are builder elements, which are used to provide information to the users. And down the bottom, there are response elements, which are used to gather information from the user. Under the builder elements, you have headings, paragraphs, web links, so that's external links, which are website links, so things like videos or websites, documents. So this enables you to link to your policies or procedures in safeagsystems, images, which are obviously pictures, or videos, which are down here, PPE, so icons for PPE, and then there are formatting elements, which are separators, page breaks, and groups. So groups enable you to group together different content elements. The response elements are made up of text fields. So this is where the responder has to type in text, date field, where the responder provides the date, a number field if you're needing them to provide you with a numerical response, a drop-down list if you want to prompt responses from the user, checkboxes if they're ticking off a series of items to check, radio buttons, which essentially are similar to yes/no responses, the option to upload a file, so if you want them to provide a photo, you can get them to upload a file, a signature where you're requiring the responder to sign, drawer where the responder can draw an image, the option to add a task, and finally a SAS record. So this is where the responder can select from a list of your machines or equipment, tools, structures, chemicals, people, or locations. Now, the final response element up here is what we call a record group. So the record group enables a repeater element. So this is where you can group together an element, such as, for instance, attendees at a meeting, and you might have a group of elements in there, as in a text field, which is their name, and a signature so that they can sign for attendance. You can put both of those under a record group and then repeat them over and over for all the individuals that are attending. The record group currently has a restriction of 10. So to build the checklist, elements are dragged into the edit screen to the desired location to create the checklist that you want to do. Checklists can also have conditional logic applied. So conditional logic directs the responder to particular prompts and fields based on their responses. So we will go and do a demonstration of this to show you how to build a checklist and then apply conditional logic. So let's start by putting in some information for the person completing the checklist. So we'll start out with a paragraph. This checklist must be completed before operating this machine. So with this one, we're going to create basically a checklist for someone to complete before they operate a machine. So click Save. So we'll now use the response group to prompt a response from the user. So in here, we'll ask for the names of anyone else who is assisting with this inspection. So we'll now bring in the SAS record into this group and we will set it to person. We'll direct them to select from the drop-down menu of who might be assisting with this inspection. Now, we won't set this to required because if no one else is assisting with the inspection, then the person completing this checklist can leave it blank. We'll now add in some checkboxes. So we'll set this to check the condition of the following, and we'll then list the items which we wish them to check. So we'll have tyres, guards, and steps. And we'll make this required. Now down here we have the option to number the item if you wish, or you can display it in line. So that means instead of appearing underneath each other, these three options will appear side by side. If I change that and remove that tick, they would appear underneath each other. So in this particular case, I'm going to have them displayed side by side. Now we can require them to select all three or only one. Now in this particular case, we want them to tick off all of them and check all three of these things while doing the inspection. So we'll make all of them required. So now we need to think about what happens if they've checked these things. We now need to identify if there were any issues found. So for this particular response, I'm going to use the radio button option. And say, were any issues found? And we'll use a yes/no response. Once again, we'll make this required and we'll display the options in line so they're side by side. Now we're building this checklist based on what we think people will respond. Before we can apply a conditional logic, we have to build all the elements out. So this is basically a task in logic. So we've now asked them the issues. Were there any issues found? Actually, I'm going to change this from a yes/no to make it even clearer. I'll put in here issues found and no issues. So we'll now use another radio button and we'll say, Were the issues fixed? And once again, we can say fixed or not fixed. We want this to be required. And again, we'll display it online. Now, if the issue was fixed, we want to know how it was fixed. So we're now going to add in a text field down here, and we'll say in here, describe the action taken to resolve the issue. Now we have the option of setting it as a single line or a multi-line. Because this might be a complex response, there might be quite a bit responded, we'll make it multi-line and click save. Now this has actually occurred in the wrong space, so I'm just going to click on it, hold my mouse down and drag it down to here so that it appears at the bottom. Now, if the issue wasn't resolved, I want them to create a task to resolve it. So I'm now going to drag in the add task option, give them the direction for what I want them to do, create a task to resolve the issue. Once again, I've got the option of making this required or not required. In this case, I'll make it required because if they haven't fixed it, I definitely want a task made to resolve it. Now, the final question I'm going to ask is, if they found an issue with this, is the machine safe to operate? So again, I'm going to use a yes or a no response. It either is safe or it isn't safe. And again, I definitely want this question answered. It's not optional, so I'll make it required. Again, I can display these in line. Now, if they say no, the machine is not safe to operate, I want to understand what's wrong. So I'm going to put in a text field here, and I'm going to prompt them to describe why the machine is not safe. Once again, it might be a complex answer, so I'll enable them to make a detailed response, so multi-line, and I'll make it required. It's not an option for them to tell me what's going on. So I've now finished building the elements in my checklist. As you can see, there's quite a lot. So I'm now ready to create the conditional logic. So once again, I'm going to go back up to the top of my checklist and scroll down and start working through what happens. Check the condition of the following: tires, guards, steps. So this is just a tick box. It doesn't require conditional logic. But the next question, were any issues found, will make a change to what, but based on the response to this, it will make a difference to the next thing that the person needs to complete. So if they say no issues, they can go on to the next question. But if they say issues were found, I want to add conditional logic. So to create conditional logic, I use this, what looks like three blocks, one block stacked on top of two blocks over here to define the conditional logic. And it now opens up the conditional logic field. So I want to add more. And down here, I want to say issues were found. I want to show an element. And I want to say, were the issues fixed? If their response is there were no issues, they can move on to the next question. So I don't need to apply any conditional logic to that response. So now we move on to the next element. Now I cannot, keep in mind I could create significant numbers of conditional logic against one item. In this particular case, I don't need to, or one element, but that is an option if you need to. So I now come down here to were the issues fixed. So once again, I click on the conditional logic icon, click add more, and go, the issue was fixed. If the issue was fixed, show an element, describe the action to resolve the issue. If the issue was not fixed, Again, I want to show an element and say, create a task to resolve the issue. In addition, if it was not fixed, again, I want to show an element and I want to ask them this question: is the machine safe to operate? And now I click save. So now you'll see where I've got conditional logic applied. This conditional logic icon is now coloured blue. So finally, I come down to here. So this up here, I've directed them finally to this question: is the machine safe to operate? So I'm now going to create conditional logic on this and go, if they say yes, do they need to do anything? The answer is no, so I'm not going to apply conditional logic to that. However, if the answer is no, then they do need to do something. So once again, I'll show an element and say, describe why the machine is not safe to operate. So I now click save on that. So the final piece of conditional logic is on this last item. This is where we've just directed the user to describe why the machine is not safe to operate. So I'm now going to apply conditional logic on a text field. Now, this is slightly different to the way I've had demonstrated conditional logic earlier. This is asking, is this field filled in or not filled in? If this field is entered, then I am going to create a follow-up task. So basically what this is doing is saying, if the user of this checklist has filled in this particular field to say the machine is not safe to operate, I want to alert the business administrators in this business to the fact that there is a machine on this property which is not safe to be operated. So what is going to happen is, if this field is filled in, a task is going to be created for all business administrators, advising them that there is an issue in this particular checklist. So we now have finished our checklist and it's ready to preview. So down here, I'll click the preview button. And up here, it now becomes very important. As you can see, I don't have the option to do anything in here. All of these fields have got a little red mark on them, but I can sit here and look at this checklist. And where it's got these little curly brackets, I can see that conditional logic has been applied on those elements. If I now come up here and I click update mode, I now have the option of completing this checklist as if I was doing it after it was published in the field. So I can now come up here and say I was being helped to complete this by Jane Smith. And I can add another individual. So this is the repeater element in demonstration. I was also being assisted by Doug Barker. So now I'll demonstrate how the conditional logic works. Check the condition of the tyres, the guards, and the steps. We've done that. And let's say we found no issues. We simply finish this. We either move on to another question if there was another question in the checklist, or we can save and close. If we click save and close, it would save it for another day for us to come back to. Or if I click submit, it completes that checklist and creates a checklist log. If I click issues found, it's now going to use the conditional logic to prompt me to the next response. So it says issues found, were they fixed or not fixed? If I say not fixed, it then brings up the next option where I have to add a task. And it also asks me the question, is the machine safe to operate? If I say no, it brings up a text box where I have to fill it in. And once again, it says one or more checklist follow-up tasks may be created based on the value of this field. So if this field is completed, this is going to prompt a task to those business administrators. If up here I said the machine is safe to operate, then there's no further action required. So if I'm happy with the checklist and how it's working, I can now go ahead and publish it. Once again, I have a review date, which will be automatically set for three years hence. And if I have an internal company ID system, I can add it in here. I can add a comment if I need to. And there is a tick here which is called does this relate to food safety? This relates to the audit module, so I'm not going to go into this in any depth. So we now publish. And this document is now located under our publish list and is viewable to workers and can be completed. Okay, so I'll now demonstrate how to attach a document to an inventory item. Now, the only documents that can be attached to an inventory item are checklists and procedures. So let me go into my machinery and equipment. I'll click on my backhoe. And I've got Details tab, Maintenance tab, and Attached Documents tab. It's the Attached Documents tab where I wish to navigate to. And I can now attach the document, be it a procedure or a checklist, to this machine. So if I wanted to attach a procedure, I would click on the drop-down menu and it brings up with all the safe work procedures that I have in my system. I can then go and attach a checklist as well, and we can choose the backhoe and loader checklist. Now I can go on and add multiple other checklists if I wish to, and multiple other procedures if I wish to. Okay, so going back to documents and files, we'll look briefly at inspections. So the process of creating or publishing an inspection is the same as the process for creating a checklist. So I won't go through that again, but the process for completing one of these, I can come over here on the three-dot menu and click Start. So that is the way I would start a checklist from the desktop. So this just gives you a demonstration of what an inspection is. So in here, it's prompting me to choose a location. I click Next, and that then will prompt me to walk through the site and inspect for hazards. Hazard assessments are completed for the site whenever the work site significantly changes from the last assessment. So I have the option to agree or disagree. If I disagree, it's going to prompt me to create a corrective action. If I agree, I move on to the next statement, where it will keep prompting me to inspect my workplace and identify if it's appropriately controlled or if there is a hazard that needs to be managed. So that's the process for running inspections. Going back to our documents, under Checklist, Policies and Procedures, we have the Log tab on the far right-hand side. So the checklist log is merely a series of logs, and same with policies, is a series of policy logs where these documents have been completed by workers in the business. If I click on this log, it will show me when it was completed. I can view the checklist, and I can now see the responses that were given when that checklist was done. This same process works under policies and works under procedures. So just to comment on version control. You'll note here we've got different versions listed under the Publish tab. So this says version 2, this says version 1. So safeagsystems will automatically track the versions that you have created. If a document has been created and you then decide to edit it, you can click on the three-dot menu and click Edit. This then explains to you that a new version of this document will be created for editing, and it will be called this particular name with a V2 on the end. So if I click OK, this document is now located under draft in edit and is under editing. If I go back to my published documents, you'll see that I still have version 1 as the version that I have published and I'm using, but there is a little pencil icon next to the version to say that this document is currently being edited. If I now go and publish the document that I'm editing, I'll click publish. It will now prompt me to put in a comment as to what I have changed. So I could say updated elements, updated requirements around PPE, if I had done that. And I now click publish. So it then explains to you that version 2 of the policy has now been published and the new version is now visible to users. If this document is attached, in this case it's a policy, so it won't be, but if a procedure is updated or a checklist is updated and it has been attached to an inventory item, that document will automatically be updated on that inventory item as well. So we'll now come back to the Publish tab. You'll see that the Chemicals and Managing Chemicals Spill policy has now moved to version 2. And if I click on the archive version, version 1 has automatically been archived for me, but is still viewable if I need to access it. Be aware that whenever you publish a new document or whenever people complete a checklist or accept a policy or a procedure, a log is created. These logs are all retained within the system, and if they're completed by individuals, they are also saved on the person's user tile under Manage People. You will be finding these if they're checklists under checklist logs. So there's all the checklists that I am either in progress or have completed. And my acceptance logs for procedures and policies are also listed here. Now, these logs can be archived. So checklist logs, policy logs, and procedure logs will be downloaded onto individual mobile phones whenever someone opens the app. So if you wish to archive them, you can simply come in here under your policy logs, select the ones you wish to archive. Obviously, they need to be documents that have been completed to archive them. Click on the bulk action and select Archive. And finally, select Apply. So those documents are still accessible within your system. You can find them down here under the Administration and under Reporting. So I hope you found this webinar helpful. If you have any questions or would like any support around building your documents, please don't hesitate to reach out. We can be contacted via phone on 08 8490 0939, or feel free to drop us an email at help@safeagsystems.com. Thank you for your time.